The invasion was scheduled for a Tuesday. This was, in retrospect, the first mistake. Supreme Commander Vexa of the DRO Keth expansion fleet had spent 14 months planning the subjugation of the third planet in this unremarkable solar system, and she had been meticulous. She had studied the humans' military deployments, their communication infrastructure, their political hierarchies. She had identified the optimal landing zones, flat, open terrain with minimal natural cover for resistance forces. She had chosen Texas. This was the second mistake. The third mistake, the one that would be written about in DRO Keth military academies for the next 600 years under the course title What Not to Do, was that a scheduling error in the fleet's navigation computer caused a 24-hour jump miscalculation. They arrived on a Monday. The ship landed at 7:43 in the morning. Darian noticed it on his way to work. He was on I-35, which meant he was not moving, which meant he had been staring at the same stretch of highway for 11 minutes while his coffee went cold in the cup holder and the radio played a country song about someone's truck. The traffic was the particular special Monday morning traffic that seemed to exist specifically to remind you that the weekend was, in fact, over and had taken all your goodwill with it. The spacecraft was large, silver, made a sound like a thunderclap when it set down in the field off the highway, which caused approximately 40 cars to briefly stop, then honk at the cars that had stopped, then stop again when they saw what had caused the stopping. Darian looked at it over his steering wheel. He looked at his coffee. He looked back at the spacecraft. Huh, he said. The radio transitioned to a song about someone's dog. The hatch opened. The DRO Keth emerged. They were, by any reasonable metric, terrifying. 8 feet tall, with 4 arms, chitinous exoskeletons in matte black, and heads that featured too many eyes arranged in a configuration that human visual processing found profoundly unsettling. They carried weapons that crackled with visible energy. They moved in formation with the precise coordination of a species that had conquered 11 worlds and found the process straightforward. Supreme Commander Vexa stepped forward and activated the translation matrix. Humans, she broadcast, her voice amplified across a 3-mile radius. Your world is hereby claimed by the DROKTH expansion. Resistance is. A car horn sounded. Then another. Then, in the particular way of Texas highway traffic, a sustained and unified symphony of horns that communicated, with remarkable clarity, that whatever was happening needed to either move or get out of the way. Vexa paused. Her second-in-command, Field Lieutenant Grax, leaned toward her. Commander, the humans are honking at us. I am aware, Grax. Should we interpret this as aggression? Vexa looked at the line of vehicles. The vehicles honked back. One of them, a very large truck with an American flag and what appeared to be truck nuts, edged forward as though considering whether the spacecraft was wide enough to go around. I don't know, she admitted. Darian had pulled onto the shoulder. This was partly because the traffic had stopped entirely and partly because he was a freelance journalist, and his brain had made the calculation, very quickly, that this was a story. He got out of his car with his phone. The alien was at least 8 feet tall and had more eyes than made sense. Darian pointed his phone at it, started recording, and said, "Hey." The alien turned 4 of its eyes toward him. "Hey," said Darian again. "You guys invading?" The translation matrix processed this. Supreme Commander Vexa, who had prepared speeches for this moment, 17 drafts, carefully calibrated for maximum psychological impact, heard the human's question and said, "Yes." Huh. Darian nodded. "Bad day for it. I beg your." Monday. He gestured at the highway. "This is Monday morning traffic on 35. Half these people haven't had coffee yet. You're not going to get a good read on us today. We're not at our best." Vexa stared at him. All of her eyes. "We are an interstellar military force." "Yeah, I can see that." He looked at his phone screen, adjusting the angle. "You're getting good light, by the way. The ship looks great." He paused. "Can I get your name?" "I am Supreme Commander Vexa of the DRO Keth expansion fleet. Darian. I write for the Observer." He lowered the phone slightly. "So when you say invading, we intend to claim this planet as a DRO Keth territorial holding and subjugate the human population too." Sure. He nodded. "Have you eaten?" Vexa stopped. "There's a Whataburger about a mile up," Darian said. "Well, there would be, but it's Monday morning so the drive-through line is probably backed out to the access road. But the one inside moves faster. You might want to," He looked at the DRO Keth formation. How many of you are there? 400 soldiers in this vanguard, Grax supplied, apparently helplessly. They might need to do a to-go order. Darian considered. Actually, Buckhees is closer. The invasion proceeded. Technically, the DRO Keth moved into the nearest population center, a mid-sized city of approximately 200,000, and began the standard subjugation protocol, which involved establishing command posts, disabling communications infrastructure, and broadcasting surrender demands. The communications infrastructure took longer than expected to disable, because the first technician assigned to the task spent 40 minutes trying to understand why the humans had 17 different systems that all technically did the same thing and none of them talked to each other. Why, said technical specialist Vorn, staring at the infrastructure schematic, is this held together with something called a legacy system? Unknown, said his assistant. And this component, it says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. What does that mean? Also unknown. And this entire section is just. We believe the humans call it duct tape, sir. Vorn sat with this for a moment. Literally or figuratively? His assistant checked the scanner. Both. The surrender demands were broadcast at 9:15 a.m. The response was slower than expected because, as it turned out, 9:15 a.m. on a Monday was when most of the city's population was either in work meetings they hadn't wanted to attend or stuck in the same traffic that had delayed the invasion's initial psychological impact. By 10 a.m., the DRO Keth command post had established control of the city hall. The city hall was empty because it was a Monday and the county commissioner was working from home. By 11 a.m., they had taken the police headquarters. The police headquarters had a skeleton crew because the Monday briefing had run long and everyone else was on patrol, and someone had also brought donuts, which had caused an informal gathering in the break room that no one had officially called a meeting, but no one was leaving either. At 11:30, Vexa received a call on the translation matrix. Commander Vexa, said a voice. Who is this? Mayor's office. We've been trying to reach you. Sorry, we had a thing. Is this still about the invasion? Because we have a council meeting at 2, and we're trying to figure out if we need to reschedule. Vexa stared at the communication device. We are occupying your city. Right, yes. We saw the ships. Very impressive, by the way. Is this a surrender situation or more of a? It is absolutely a surrender situation. Okay, so should we reschedule the council meeting or? Yes, reschedule the council meeting. We are invaders. Right, okay. Do you need anything? Parking validation? We charge for the garage, but I think under the circumstances. Vexa ended the communication. She sat in silence for 11 seconds. Grax, she said. Commander, what is happening? Grax consulted his field reports with the expression of someone who had prepared extensively for a war and found himself at a county fair. The humans in Sector 4 are asking if our soldiers want to join what they're calling a block party. The humans in Sector 7 have started offering the vanguard something called kolaches. 17 soldiers have accepted. In Sector 9, a human named Earl has challenged our largest ground trooper to an arm wrestling competition, and the trooper, Grax paused. The trooper lost, Commander. Vexa said nothing. The trooper is currently requesting a rematch. He lost. Earl is 73 years old. He used to ranch cattle. Grax looked at the report again. He says it's the handshake grip. Our soldier's exoskeletal joint configuration is apparently at a mechanical disadvantage for. I don't need the biomechanics, Grax. No, Commander. I need to know why we are losing an arm wrestling competition to a 73-year-old human named Earl. At 1:45 p.m., Darian posted his interview with Supreme Commander Vexa. It had been conducted over what Vexa had initially refused and then accepted as just coffee at a local diner where the waitress had called her Han and refilled her cup without asking, and Vexa had not known how to process this, and so had sat very still and allowed it to happen. The interview was 17 minutes long. In it, Vexa explained the DRO Keth expansion program, their 11 previous conquests, and their intentions for Earth. Darian asked follow-up questions. He also asked if she wanted pie. She said no. Then yes. Then she had the peach. The video got 4 million views by 3 p.m. The top comment was, she said, "Oh, that's good, about the pie, and I think we're going to be fine." The second top comment was, "Invaded Texas on a Monday, rookie mistake." The third was from someone named Earl actually who wrote. The big one said best 2 out of 3. I said yes. Update, 3 out of 5 now. His grip is improving, I'll give him that. At 4:30 p.m., Vexa sat in the diner again. Across from her, Darian had a notepad. The waitress had stopped asking if she needed anything and just started bringing things, which Vexa had learned was a sign of acceptance rather than presumption. What happens now? Darian asked. Vexa looked at her coffee, at the pie plate, which was empty. At the window, where one of her soldiers was helping an old woman carry groceries to her car, while another was being shown how to two-step by a group of retirees outside the hardware store. I have conquered 11 worlds, she said. I know. None of them, she stopped. Started again. None of them fed us, or challenged us to arm wrestling, or asked if we needed parking validation. Darian said nothing. On the 9th world, Vexa said, they begged. On the 6th, they fought. On the 3rd, they negotiated. She looked at him. None of them acted like we were a minor inconvenience on a Monday. I was going to say phenomenon of manageable novelty. Same thing. She was quiet for a moment. This is not a conquerable planet. No, not on a Monday. She pushed her coffee cup forward for the refill she had learned was coming. I think you do it on purpose. The casualness, the coffee, the arm wrestling. Darian thought about this honestly. I think it's just Monday, he said. We're tired. We don't have the energy to be scared until we've had lunch. By the time we got to scared, you'd already had pie with me. Vexa considered this at length. We will need to renegotiate our mission parameters, she said finally. Probably. With your government. Sure. I can put you in touch with some people. He made a note. Fair warning, there's a hold time. Could be a while. How long? Darian thought about every government phone line he had ever called. Budget a few weeks. Vexa absorbed this with the patience of someone who had traveled between star systems and could wait. Her soldier outside had learned the first steps of the two-step and was now being corrected, gently, repeatedly, by a woman in her 80s who was apparently both firm and encouraging about footwork. Your planet, Vexa said, is very strange. Yeah, Darian agreed. But the pie's good. Vexa looked at her empty plate. Yes, she said. It is. She flagged down the waitress for another slice. The invasion, by any reasonable definition, was over. Nobody had officially announced this yet, but everyone could tell.